Yeah, it was now that I look back at it,
Mhm.
I really was in what they would call a survival mode. I literally was trying to survive. Taking care of 3 young kids. My daughter, when we started this process, she was 2 years old.
Mhm.
Today, she's 16. So she was basically raised in the family court system, right? When you've seen multiple custody evaluations aren't just for the parents, it's with the children. They're very much involved in a custody evaluation. So they've been through that 3 times. Um, my sole focus was my children, obviously. You know, there's the analogy, it's really not an analogy, on the plane, they say, "Put your mask on first and then put it on your children." Well, for me, it was like, I need to get mask on my children, and I'll worry about myself later.
Mhm.
So it was very much survival mode. I don't know how I did it at times. I had a great support system. Again, being a woman of faith, I relied heavily on God. I didn't have $100,000 at the time to spend on court. I was a stay-at-home mom for 11 years, and when I say stay-at-home mom, like stay-at-home mom, I was Susie Homemaker, right? I made my kids' clothes, I cooked from scratch, like I was that that mom. Wasn't working at the time, didn't have any money to my name. I had to come up with over $100,000. So there were times where I didn't know how we were going to make it. There were times where we didn't have food. People had to drop things off because there was no money. So it was very much survival mode during those years. And really, my focus, like I said, was really trying to protect my kids. I did not want them to be another statistic. I did not want them to be, that kid that's going to have trouble in school is going to, drop out and be a menace. I did not want that. So my focus was really preparing my kids as well for what they were going to go through, but also trying to protect them.
Yes. How, as I hear you talk, what is your advice to stay at home moms? Because there's a thing going on now in social media where, social media, I know it's social media, but these are things that, you hear people say
Yeah.
that they're in fear, that mostly women are in fear of staying at home because they fear as if they, whoever they're married to, they might not like trust their husband as far as that power dynamic.
Hmm.
You know, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. So I had my first son, when I was really young. I say really young. I think I was about 23, 22, 23. Um, that was intentional. I knew I wanted to have my kids young.
Mhm.
Uh, I have two are about to be out the door, and the last one I got 2 more years. So I'm excited, and I was like, well, she still look good too. She thought to be an empty nester, and she still looks good. That wasn't the plan. I thought I'd be still married, but I'm an empty nester and single. So anyway, uh, but that was not the plan. That was not the plan. But for stay at home mom, so my child, I did not intend to be a stay at home mom. It's a funny story. My oldest, when he was an infant, and I don't know if this is common, but I call it cradle crap, but it's called cradle cap,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's just dry skin on the scalp. Well, as a new mom, I had no idea what to do, right? And so my mother-in-law at the time was watching him while I went back to work. I went back to work almost immediately, probably within 3 months. And I remember coming home and he was just dripping in oil. And I said, what did you do? And she said, well, I put olive oil on his head, to break some of it up. And I was like, well, how do you know he's not allergic to olives? He could be allergic to olives. What if something happened? And so after that, I kid you not, within probably a week or two, I put in my resignation and
Mhm.
I said, you know what? I will stay at home with this child. Um, After that, another two kids came. Right after that, I had them back to back, their stair steps.
Yeah.
But for me, it was really, I didn't want to miss out on the first, right? I didn't want to miss out on their first step, the first crawl, the first owie or anything like that. But in knowing that I was staying home and putting my career on pause, I didn't really have a plan as to, well, how are you going to support the things that you want to do, right? How are you going to support? I've always had an entrepreneur
Mm,
spirit, right? And I'm super creative. And there's things that I wanted to do, but it was just like, well, no, you a stay-at-home mom. You just cook, clean, and take care of these kids,
yeah,
right? That's your job,
yeah,
right? And so I was like, I never thought about this long term. It was a emotional decision in a temporary moment because my child looked like a scene out of Soul Glow, right? Or at a Coming to America Soul Glow commercial, right? And so I was like, I didn't really think this through.
mhm,
Had I thought it through, I probably would have, and this is some of the advice for women who may want to stay at home with their kids or are staying at home with their kids, or
mhm,
even some of the dads, right? We live in a generation now and at a time where that is okay. It's always been okay, but now it's socially okay, right? It's
yes,
acceptable.
mhm,
Um, but try to find something that you can own. And I'm not saying like run a full-fledged business. If you want to, go right ahead. Go right
mhm,
ahead.
mhm,
Um, but just something that you can own, that you can grow, that you can possibly see some type of income coming in, passive income coming in. I don't know how people feel about, the finances and do you divide it 50-50 or this is my money, this is your money, then we have a pot in the middle, whatever you decide, but make sure you have something for yourself. No one goes into a marriage saying, okay, I know this is going to last only about 3 years, so I'm gonna calculate. No one does that, right? You go into it for the long haul. However, things happen. Things happen. So you want to have that safety net. In my situation, I had no safety net. I remember there was an incident that happened, and it's like, I gotta get out of here. I emailed a friend of mine from when I was 15 years old. I went way back
yeah,
because I didn't know who else to reach out to. I couldn't reach out to my family because at the time they didn't know what was going on.
mhm,
My friends knew somewhat, but I didn't want to expose that to them. So
yeah,
I reached out to this person. I said, hey, I'm in this situation. The retainer for my attorney is $3,500. I don't have a dime to my name right now. Can
mhm,
you please help me? And it was literally like a SOS email. And the next day, got an email back, said, that's fine. I'll contact your attorney tomorrow and get it done. And they did. And
yeah,
that's how the ball got rolling. But I
yeah,
will always say, have something that you have that is of your own.
mhm,
And again, with the finances, it should be something that is discussed. It should be something that each person has access to. There shouldn't
mhm,
be one person's name on the account and your money's going in there too. I got a problem with that.
yeah,
I will say that. But it needs to be the expectations need to be there. They need to be open and clear,
mhm,
especially if one is the breadwinner and one is taking care of the kids.
yeah. That's no, that's wisdom because I'm such a fan of it now as far as, you know, women being at home, wives being at home. Uh, if I know anything now, and just from what I've learned looking back over my 47 years of life, I wish I would have given my wife the option to work or stay at home. I won't say give, but like, hey, you either want to work or you want to stay at home because raising young kids, it's a lot, you know.
Yeah, it's a job. It
Yes.
it's a very tough job. You
Mhm.
got 3 lives that depend on you, you know,
Yes.
so they know their colors and ABCs. I remember just driving around, we had I called it a bus, but the extended, Escalade, and I was just like, "What color is that over there?"
Mhm.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's really exhausting, and then you get all the questions from them, you gotta answer them, you take care of everything. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's the most rewarding, right?
Yes. Because you could be raising the next president of the United States.
Exactly.
You just never know.
Yeah.
I want to talk about co-parenting.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on co-parent, especially while going through the divorce process or even after the divorce process or whatever you feel like can really help the viewers and the listeners as far as co-parenting in this whole process with divorce?
I want to say, if you're thinking about getting married, think about that person as a co-parent going into the marriage. Right? How good of a co-parent would this person be? But don't do that. It's funny because I think the National Psychologist something association, they say the definition for co-parenting is that it is an experience. Right? It's an experience between two parents. And I said, oh yeah, it definitely is an experience like no other, like
Mhm,
no other.
mhm,
Co-parenting can be either very challenging or it can be very good. It depends on the people, the two parents.
mhm,
If you have one parent who is just still bitter and hell bent on making your life hard, then they're going to use that opportunity, that experience to make your life a living hell. Then on the flip side, I've seen someone actually met a woman today at an event that I was at earlier, and she said that with her ex, they have a great co-parenting relationship.
mhm,
She said, actually, I'm driving his car right now because my car is in the shop and he dropped it off. She said, we talk every day. So it can be two extremes. It really can be two extremes.
mhm.
The one thing I would say, if it is a I would say a contested
Yes.
divorce,
Mhm,
and then that most likely would lead to a contested type relationship with your co-parent. Keep it very simple. You
mhm.
do not have to engage them in every little fight
Yeah.
or text or email. For your own sanity, keep it very basic and about the kids, and that's it. If it has, if they send you a text or email and it has absolutely nothing to do with the kids, you are not required by law to respond to that. I learned that the hard way. The hard way meaning I learned that years after, and I would spend all this time going back and forth in emails when I didn't really need to. It was not even about the kids, and it took my therapist saying, "Now, where show me where in your parenting plan order does it say you have to respond to this?" They can't find it. I was like, "Yeah, because it's not there. It doesn't exist." So therefore, the conversation doesn't need to exist. And
Mhm,
so finding just you're going to have to figure out how to manage this new relationship. And I know it's a shock because when you go through a divorce, you don't go through a divorce thinking, okay, and I have to have, enter into daily communication or spend more time with this person. You're thinking, it's my way out.
mhm.
Deuces. Y'all to see you no more. Get out my life. And then when you have children, it's like, oh no, you gotta stay here until at least they're 18 or
Yeah.
they graduate, right? Whichever one's
Mhm,
later. So you're stuck with that person. And that's the hard reality with co-parenting because you're thinking after the divorce, you get your decree, you get your decree number, and
mhm,
you're on your way. No, ma'am, and no, sir. No,
mhm,
you now you enter into that experience called co-parenting. And you're gonna have to find ways to manage that and manage how much time and attention that you put into that relationship. It can work. It can be a beautiful thing. I've seen it. Just it hasn't happened in my case. I wish it had.
yeah.
Um, but I've seen it work beautifully. And it when it does, it benefits the children.
Mhm,
It benefits the children. The one thing I harp on, and it's throughout my course is 12 sessions, 12 videos. I harp on it, especially the custody evaluation portion. I say the one thing that you can do if you are co-parenting or dealing with the custody evaluation is to make sure your kids feel two things: safe and loved, period. If you focus on that, you shouldn't have any issues. You
Yeah.
really shouldn't have any issues. With
Yeah.
co-parenting, you're just gonna have to put your feelings aside
Mhm.
and be bitter. You can't, because that's going to make the relationship, that's going to make your divorce feel like it's never ending, because
Mhm.
it's constant going back and forth, bickering about this, bickering about that. Then don't let someone break the order, then you're back in court. I'm talking about myself here, right?
Yeah.
So now you see how, because a lot of people are like, how did you spend 12 years? Constant fighting back and forth after the divorce is over. Constant fighting back and forth. So do yourself a favor, get your decree, sit down, love your kids, make sure they're safe, and go about your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And I want to piggyback off of that because there was a reel that you created that said 2 words you should never say in a custody battle.
Yeah.
That reel was so good. And you said,